Hi guys, and welcome to the CPFC podcast with me, your host, Afonso Greenbrook. Today in Pod 9, I'll be looking over the result over Leicester City and be discussing the match, player rankings, my man match, as well as hearing from Pardew and what he had to say after the game. So let's begin.
Crystal Palace, where eagles fly. People never gave us a chance, but we proved them wrong. They said we were wasting our time, but we were strong. 'Cause our fans made a winning sound. It was echoing around the ground. Crystal Palace, we passed the test. Crystal Palace, the very best. We're the Eagles and we're flying, never give up trying. Gonna hold our heads up high. Crystal Palace, where eagles fly. We can see the end is in sight. One more game to play. A team of men with heads full of dreams to take the prize away. But you know that we rely on you, and the faith you have will pull us through. Crystal Palace, we passed the test. Crystal Palace, the very best. We're the Eagles and we're flying, never give up trying. Gonna hold our heads up high. Crystal Palace, where eagles fly. We've never been to Wembley before, with such a mighty crowd. Knowing you'll be there by our side is gonna make us proud. And together we will hope and pray we will win the cup that special day. Crystal Palace, we passed the test. Crystal Palace, the very best. We're the Eagles and we're flying, never give up trying. Gonna hold our heads up high. Crystal Palace, where eagles fly. Crystal Palace, where eagles fly. Crystal Palace, where eagles fly. Crystal Palace, where eagles fly.
A single goal from Mahrez was enough for Leicester City to move 8 points clear at the top of the table and beat Palace at Selhurst Park. The Eagles fell to their 6th straight home defeat thanks to the Algerian converting Jamie Vardy's pullback in the 34th minute, but in a game of few chances, Alan Pardew's men nearly snatched a point at the depth, but Damien Delhi saw a volley in half-time clip the crossbar. The table toppers enjoyed the better of a quiet first half and nearly went ahead on 18 minutes. An insensitive pass by Danny Drinkwater allowed Mahrez to speed past and behind Papa Soiree and go one-on-one with Wayne Hennessy. The Algerian tried to slip a shot between the keeper's legs, but it was clipped off the Welshman and Scott Down was on hand to clear the ball away, which was dangerously trickling goalwards. Palace's slow start continued, and it would take until the 30th minute mark for them to make a sight on goal when a wonderful pass by Johan Cabaye released Yannick Bolasie down the left, who turned to pick out his fellow wideman Wilfried Zaha at the far post, but his touch deserted him and he saw the ball scuff off the studs and go well wide. But 3 minutes later, the Foxes took the lead as a trio of their key players combined after Damien Delhi headed a cross away. Danny Drinkwater swiftly returned it to the powerful Vardy, who got past Joe Ward and centred into the box, which Riyad Mahrez dispatched with glee to put Ranieri's men ahead. It could have been worse for Palace, as Hennessy was then forced down to push away a shot by Albrighton on 39 minutes, and after a tame showing from his side in the opening half, Alan Pardew responded by making a double change at half-time, introducing Bakary Sako and Martin Kelly at the interval. However, Leicester's domination continued, and Okazaki saw a shot on the term only missed the target by a few millimetres a few minutes into the second half before Mahrez once again popped up in a dangerous position and shot wide. As the half wore on, the Foxes seemed to content to protect what they had so far. The Eagles had plenty of possession and began to find themselves cramped in Leicester's half, but opportunities were hard to come by, although Sako did seem to blast one from the edge of the area, but it was comfortably slaved by Schmeichel. It happened again with 7 minutes to go, but this time things were more awkward for the Danish shot-stopper, who had to fist the ball over his crossbar, and then Johan Kabay saw an attempt deflected wide as the Eagles forced a succession of corners. But the last say went to Leicester when Vardy scrambled forward with a couple minutes to go and seemed likely to shoot home, but a fantastic recovering tackle by Damien Delaney prevented him from doubling the lead, and the Irishman nearly made an even more telling contribution at the other end when he chested down Dan's knockdown from a Kabay corner before volleying it towards the goal, but the ball flicked off the crossbar and away to safety. That proved to be the last action of the game, as the Foxes celebrated a crucial victory which extended Palace's winless run in the league to 13 matches. So now you've heard the match review, now we're going to move on to the player rankings. So obviously if you do agree with these, or you disagree, or have something to say about them, don't forget to comment below, and then obviously we can all see your opinion, and obviously we can discuss your opinion. But we're going to start with Wayne Hennessy in goal, a 7. Hennessy did well to save an early Mahrez attempt with his feet and couldn't do much about the goal. He was largely uprooted, which will frustrate Palace as they still managed to lose the game. He got criticised a lot when things go wrong, but rarely praised for solid performances, and obviously the Leicester game was one of the performances. Did his job against Leicester, including a smart one-on-one save from Mahrez. Obviously Wayne Hennessy he's been a bit shaky in the last few weeks, but against Leicester he put on a really good performance. He did let in the goal, but at the end of the day, you know, it was a hard game against top of the league, but he done well, made some lovely crucial saves throughout the game, obviously, so good performance from him. Now Joe Ward, a 6, another routine solid display from the Palace fullback. He never really seems to steal the headlines, but does his job effectively. But he arguably should have done better and closed down Vardy quicker for the cross that led to the game's only goal from Mahrez. And he made I don't know how to explain this really, and was made to look rather average by Albrighton. He's having a tough time at the moment, so it's quite hard to explain his performance because he's done well and was able to do a really good fullback role, but he made a few mistakes, and at the moment he hasn't really been as good as he's been in past seasons, so his standards is a bit lower, but it's an average performance, so that's why I sort of struggled to explain it, because it was an average, but a weird average performance, let's say. But now to move on to the two defenders, so starting with Scott Dan, 7. Dan was lucky not to give away a penalty when he almost ripped Robert Huth's shirt off the back. He made a crucial goal line clearance after Hennessy got a touch to Mahrez' shot. Won a lot of the headers against Vardy and didn't give the striker a lot to play with. Looked to carry the ball out of defence rather than loft it forwards at time, which was a rare sight, but it was a beautiful sight. So obviously there, just explaining about Scott Dan. He did have a very good defensive game. We did concede the goal, but actually we could have conceded a lot more. But a solid performance from both Damien Delaney and Scott Dan, obviously, to do it. And about the penalty incident, there's a video on my Twitter. If they're not going to give one for someone being pushed down in the box, why are they going to give one for someone who was grabbing onto someone and they accidentally ripped their shirt? Because what happened is there was no contact. He was just holding on his shirt, marking the man, and he fell down. And obviously, as he fell down, because you're holding on to them, marking them, the shirt came off. So really, it wasn't a penalty. If it was me given as a penalty, I would have been more annoyed than the Benteke one. But really, you know, it's football at the end of the day. There's always a bit of banter, and I suppose you could say that is the banter in the game. But to move on to Damien Delaney, also a 7. Delaney had another solid game. His last gasp tackle stopped Leicester from doubling the lead, and he was unlucky not to score when he hit the crossbar. Also had a customary handful of last-ditch blocks in the box, but found Okazaki's pace and low centre of gravity difficult to deal with. Incredibly unlucky not to score at the end. So obviously they're just explaining two different aspects of Delaney's game. Obviously that he was a really good defender. He was able to get the full forward, make crucial tackles, and obviously he did hit the crossbar. And obviously the other one is obviously his good side, which is the defensive. Obviously the crossbar, whereas the downside sort of was the sort of, I would say, a certain aspect, like the pace, for example, and his attacking weren't brilliant, but his defensive work was very good, and obviously his pace ain't that good, but really quite a good, solid performance from Delaney. Deserves the 7. Some people have given him a 6, which I've seen online, but really, I think he had a really good performance, like Dan, and can't really blame him for the goal being conceded, because he actually made some crucial saves, crucial blocks and tackles throughout the game to make sure that we could keep conceding goals to a minimum. Now to move on to Papa Soare, who had an absolutely bizarre game, and some people have given him an even lower score than this, but I think this reflects his score, his performance well, because although he done some bad things, which I'll go on to explain, or some not very good decisions, he was alright. A bit lower than average, lower than he normally is, but, you know, all players have their off games. But Soare was rightly removed at half-time after a horrible 45 minutes. He gave the ball away needlessly and picked up a silly yellow card. Pardew was right to remove him, as he would have likely been sent off. Really struggling for form and a nightmare against Mahrez, which can be forgiven when you consider the Leicester man will probably be Player of the Year this season. And obviously he was replaced by Martin Kelly at half-time. So obviously not a very good performance defensively from Papa Soare, but on alright, slightly below average performance, but you know, he'd done a job. Was a bit stupid, his yellow card. He could have got a red for another silly tackle, but Pardew, once again, good tactical skills in his management, took him off at half-time for Martin Kelly. Obviously changed the game there, and actually I think that was a very effective change, as well as the one I'll go on to talk about later. But yeah, below average performance for Soare. A bit stupid, I think, the way he acted, some of his decisions, but not the worst performance from him, let's say that. Now to move on to the defensive midfielders. So Mile Jednak, a 7. Jednak battled well with Kante in the midfield. He continues to impress in the middle of the park and had another decent game. Thrives when he keeps things simple despite his aging legs. So just saying there that he done well to Kante, probably one of the best defensive midfielders at the moment in the league. He managed to battle with him well, and I think that's the thing with Jednak, is his experience. 31 years old, he's got the experience, knows how to deal with these players, and also he's just really good in the middle of the park. I think that people want him to be a centre back, but I think his defensive role is very good, because he's pretty good at finding a pass. Not as good as Goodbye in my opinion, but he's good at finding his pass, so getting forward, and also he's good at the defensive role, which he does in the club as well. So a pretty good game from him, and obviously if he continues, he will have another good season. But obviously, like it says here, he likes to keep things simple, so just simple, plain defending and then attacking when he gets the opportunity. Now to move on to the other defensive midfielder, Joe Ledley, a 6. Another hard-working, neat display from the Welshman. He battled in the midfield before being taken off with 10 minutes to go, as Palace put on another striker. Not a vintage performance from the Welshman, but he might argue that he played out of position for most of the game in the left midfield, replaced by Dwight Gale late on. So obviously I did say he was a defensive midfielder. He did throughout the game chop and change throughout the game from being on the wing, which I don't think is really good for Ledley, and a defensive role. So a very adjustable player, let's say, but he, like Jednak, he was able to do his defensive role as well as an attacking role, obviously, where he was on the left. I don't know, really. He had an alright game, obviously a bit tired at the end, so obviously why he got replaced. But like Jednak, I believe he's 29 years old, so he's got quite a lot of experience, so able to deal with situations well. Now to move on to the attacking midfielder, Yohan Cabaye. So Yohan Cabaye, a 7. Cabaye came close with a late strike, but overall he just kept it simple as Palace looked to attack with width. Plenty of bite and intervention in the middle of the park, was the only Palace player able to get the ball down and play, but still couldn't dominate games like he did in the first half of the season. So obviously a very good game from Yohan Cabaye, not one of his best, but definitely above average. A pretty good game from him. He was able to have a few shots on goal. Obviously, he went wide, got saved, so good going attackingly. Also good at tracking back and defending. But obviously, he didn't really have to do much because our attacking relied mostly on the wings, so Zaha and Bolasie. So it depends on them attacking down the wings, obviously, and Cabaye didn't really have to do anything, but he was there able to get on the end of crosses, and he did actually miss one. Just by a few centimetres, he tried to sort of kick it in the air, missed by centimetres, but good performance from him, obviously. Like I said there, he was really good in the middle of the park, was able to find the passes as well as receive the passes and pass them out wide. He's not as good as he's been in the first half of the season, but I think that's just because he's getting tired, where he's one of the oldest players in the side. But a pretty good average performance, which you would expect of Yohan Cabaye. Now to move on to Wilfried Zaha. And Wilfried Zaha a 6, which is quite surprising considering during this hard time I've said that he's been one of our best attacking players. He didn't really have a good game against Leicester, but probably should have scored with an early effort and looked dangerous throughout. So obviously, if he scored the effort, he could have changed the whole game. But, you know, all players make mistakes, and obviously he has been credit to him during this hard time. Targeted with some robust tackles again, and is not protected by the referee, but never looked a threat. So obviously he's been our best attacking threat in the last few games, but against Leicester he weren't really a threat. He wasn't really as attacking as he normally is, and obviously him and Bolasie do get targeted quite a lot because they get 3 people on them, obviously because they know they're the best attacking threat. But also, there are little tackles in them, and I'm not just saying this as a biased fan, because I try not to be biased on these podcasts, but I think that they do actually gang up on Wolf a lot. Obviously, I do say that there's 3 players on them, but generally they do tackle them, and it's the same with Cabaye, really. They tackle them quite badly, they, end up pushing them in the box and nothing gets given, so, a bit unlucky in that respect, but really not the best performance from Wilfried Zaha, but hopefully he can improve, get back to his form, which he's been at last season, this beginning of this season, and hopefully he can link up again with Bolasie. So talking of Bolasie now, to move on to Yannick Bolasie with a 7. Bolasie was Palace's most threatening player and gave Danny Simpson a horrid time, obviously the defender. Looked more comfortable out wide than through the middle and put a couple of dangerous crosses. Always worked hard for the team, but nothing came off for him. So obviously, like I said there, he was our best attacking player. Obviously, who we played up front, I'll go on to explain, didn't really do much, but Bolasie definitely was one of our best attacking players. He was able to get in loads of dangerous crosses into the area, which Cabaye missed one of them. If Cabaye had struck that could have been a lovely assist and a lovely goal. But, you can't win every game. And I've got to try and keep a positive thing, considering we haven't won in 13. But, a pretty good game from Yannick Bolasie. Most threatening player, and he's slowly, you can see now, getting back to what his standard that he was before he got injured. So, good game from him. Hopefully, he can carry on this good form and get better and better, same as Wilf. Now, to move on to the forward, which was Emmanuel Adebayor, a 4. Which some people have actually given him less because his performance wasn't really that good, and he only ever seems to play well when he wants to. But I'm not going to take it away from him. He is class, but Leicester game wasn't really for him, and obviously that's why he gets a 4. Now, Adebayor didn't have a good half and was rightly hooked at half-time. Didn't look bothered at all, and most fans only noticed that when he was playing. And obviously he was replaced by Bakary Sako at half-time. So obviously Adebayor didn't really have a good game, didn't have any attacking sense in him. He looked quite lost, in my opinion. He weren't really doing much, and he just looked quite tired. Obviously he is quite old, so that, and I think for him, once we get Wickham back, it will sort of be on a basis that Wickham plays one game and Adebayor plays one game, on that sort of cycle, because Adebayor is really good, class player, but he only ever seems to play well sort of when he's had a break. And obviously when Wickham comes back, to stop him getting injured continuously, we'll just have a game with him, a game without him, and do it on that cycle. And I think that will work for us. But Adebayor could have done better in the game, but considering his age and hasn't been playing football for a year, I can give him his due. but really he needs to start improving. Otherwise, people like Dwight Gale, who are going to start knocking on the door again, and Fraser Campbell's to get in the squad. So, decision there for Pardew to make. Now to move on to the substitutions. Martin Kelly, a 6. Fans must wonder how he still can't get a regular game with both fullbacks struggling. Was solid if unspectacular in the second half. So Martin Kelly came on for Suarez, who was really struggling. Didn't really do much in the game, but was solid in the game, obviously, so we didn't concede in the second half. Was able to find passes for Bolasie and Wolf, but, an average performance from Martin Kelly, considering he came on at half-time. Now to move on to Bakary Sako, who came on from Manuel Adebayor, and obviously he came on sort of as a striker rather than a midfielder. So Palace's best player after the break, putting in some inviting crosses and firing a few of them thunderbolts that stung Schmeichel's palms. So obviously Bakary Sako came on for Adebayor, had a really good game. Best attacking option, like Bolasie, was able to get lovely crosses into the area, was able to make runs and cut into the area. And obviously, he had a few shots on goal, and they were all saved by Schmeichel. So, possibly, debatably, one of our best players in the game. And obviously, credit to Sako. And the final substitution was Dwight Gale. He only came on for sort of the last 10 minutes, so you can't really give him a ranking because he didn't really touch the ball. But in my opinion, he did sort of change the game. He made the team more attacking for the last 10 minutes, in my opinion. So, if anything, that was a good substitution. So there there you have it. There's my match review and player rankings. Now for my man of the match. So for this week's man of the match, I've done a Twitter poll once again. And obviously I'm going to announce the winner of the Twitter poll. But as well as doing that, I'm also going to announce who my man of the match was and who I thought was the best performer for Palace. So obviously the results were, I got 72 votes. Obviously you can vote next week, or sorry, not next week, the week after that for the West Ham game by using my Twitter at the CPFC podcast. So I had 72 votes. So in last place, in 4th place was Scott Dan with 14% of the results. In 3rd place was Yannick Bolasie with 19% of the votes. In 2nd place, with 25% of the votes, was Mile Jednak. So this week's winner of the man of the match, as voted by the people of Twitter, was Bakary Sako with 42% of the results. So these 4 players are my choices. This is who I thought were the 4 best players on the pitch during the game. Obviously, people may disagree, but these were reading other people's comments on other polls before I posted this poll. I had a look, and they were the 4 players that I thought were good and that other fans also thought they were good. And obviously I left it entirely up to my people and followers on Twitter to decide who they thought the man of the match was from the 4 that I had picked. So obviously Dan, very good game, very good defensive game. He was able to make tackles. He was able to get forward as well, quite a few headers. Same with Bolasie. Bolasie, in the first half, our best attacking option, was able to get forward a lot until Sako came on. Obviously, he was our second most attacking option. He was able to get in crosses into the area, which was very good. And he did play much better, not playing up front, but playing on the wing, which is his preferred position. Now, Jednak was obviously playing a defensive role, which we've been playing quite regularly now, obviously with sort of a 5 defence almost with Jednak. Very good game from Jednak. He was able to deal with the likes of Drinkwater and Kante. Obviously, fast players. Well, obviously, Jednak's a very old player, got loads of experience and able to obviously stop players like them. And obviously, to move on to Sako, I'm going to go and say who my man out was, but Sako was an outstanding player for Palace. He was our best attacking option in the second half. He came on, he completely changed the face of the game by being more attacking, by being... It's very hard to explain it, but he was the best player on the pitch, in my opinion. I know I'm repeating myself, but really, best attacking option. He was able to get in crosses into the air, able to cut in across, and a really good, solid performance. And for that reason, I'm going to give Bakary Sako my man of the match for the Leicester game. So, yep. So really, the only reason I've given him that is because he did change the game in the second half. Was more attacking, so obviously helping us try to get the goal. And he, like I said, changing the game, and obviously his crosses were superb in trying to just scrape that, trying to get us back into the game. So there you have it. My man of the match was Bakary Sako, and that is closely followed up by Mile Jednak. So hopefully Mile Jednak can possibly win it next week. So there you have it. That's my podcast review. Now we're going to listen to what Pardew had to say after the game.
Well, yeah, frustrating we haven't got anything from the game. I think they showed in the first half why they're top of the league. We couldn't really make any impact on them. They're very strong, discipline-wise, in terms of their defensive duties. It was very hard to get through them. Couldn't really kind of create anything. And they deserved the lead at half-time. But second half, we were a lot better, a lot more positive. I thought they started to get a little bit edgy towards the edge of the game, and that's when probably our best chances were. And probably should have forced something.
How do you assess the lower half of the table now, because Norwich won today? I think they're 5 points behind you, and that they're your next home game as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be a pretty, important game for us. We know that that we're kind of involved in that. We got enough in that dressing room to make sure we're not involved in it. But the bottom line is to get some points quickly, because in the league form, obviously, we need to improve. But it was always going to be a difficult task today. And I thought, as I say, second half we was a lot better.
What's the key to dealing with the mental side of getting sucked into the relegation battle? Staying calm and not panicking?
Well, I thought we played a fairly measured game second half, really. So that was a good sign. We certainly had more of a Crystal Palace threat second half than we had in the first half. And that's what will get us out of it, our DNA really. And we've showed that in flashes in recent games. But the opposition today were good. It was as tough a game as we've had all season.
Playing the champions today.
Well, I don't know about playing the champions, but I think from what I've seen today against my team, who had a bit of momentum from last week, they'll be worthy champions. I'd say that.
And change you made at half time, makes a significant difference to you.
I just thought, that we needed to get a few more crosses in the box, take a few more risks, try and play through their lines a little bit. And I thought we did that reasonably well against a good side. And something could have fallen for us. It's fell to Damo, he's hit the bar there, a couple of chances went across the box. And that's probably all Leicester give up. Whenever I've seen them, you don't get a load of chances against Leicester. So, as I say, they're a very organised team.
Are places under threat in the team for the cup? Dependent on league form, you need players forming their top.
I don't think there was really much wrong with our performances today, if I'm honest. It was a team that was massive momentum, massive confidence against the team that is fighting at the moment. We're fighting to try and get those results in the league, and we've got a little bit of pressure on us, different kind of pressure to Leicester. And but I thought both teams give a good account for themselves today. But Leicester just shaded it, and I think that's about as fair as I can say it.
We've had it by all. Was it him versus his opponent that rather than what he was putting, rather than the effort he was putting in, he was up against?
Yeah, but I think it's Adebayo is not the sort of player that is going to charge around. That's not ever been his style. You've got to get good ball into him, and of course we wasn't doing that. And it made him have a game where he wasn't really making any impact. So we tried to have a bit more movement up the top of the pitch, and it worked better for us in this particular game.
And I know it's your principal concern, but do you sense a goodwill towards Leicester? It seems a lot of people, even here, would like them to win the title.
Well, of course. I mean, it's something that we're all been thrilled with. If you're looking as neutral, You're probably asking me on the wrong day, though. And in my dressing room, there wasn't that feeling. But of course, they've done a great job. You know, from the chairman right down to the kit man. And good luck to them.
So there, now you've heard what Padre had to say, that concludes my match review of Crystal Palace versus Leicester City. But make sure to come back next week for my pre and post match review of Crystal Palace versus West Ham, or West Ham versus Crystal Palace. So thanks for watching, and remember to up the Palace.